Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me on this slumber edition is Tim.
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm okay. Yep. I never asked how you're doing. That's not my patter. I don't do that at the start of podcasts.
I'd try something different.
I feel like everyone who does that at the start of a podcast, though, I always feel awkward about what to respond with. I'm like, well, I don't know. I feel normal. There's nothing to report. I feel like if I don't sound super enthusiastic, I sound like I'm being really moody. But I mean, I don't always have something to report when I'm asked how I'm feeling.
Just speak your truth, I guess.
I feel neutral. I feel neutral as can be.
Okay.
I feel mid. Delightfully mid. This is a horror movie podcast. We get together. I appreciate you turned it into mail there. Very good. Yes. But there's an intro to complete here, so I'm going to steamroll ahead, Timmy. So this is Scoots After Midnight. It's a horror movie podcast. We get together, we've watched a horror movie, and we talk about it. And coming up on today's show, we are actually visiting a new entry in a franchise that we had done a long time ago. A few Octobers ago, we worked through all three Slumber Party Massacres. And would you believe it, in the year of our Lord 2021, they have graced us with a Slumber Party Massacre reboot, which is Shout Factory, or I guess Scream Factory, I assume they're branding it with. And Sci-Fi, the channel, it is a straight to sci-fi movie, which might ring some alarm bells for fair reasons. So we'll get into that. But yes, so we'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you warning before we get to spoilers. If you're not remembering what Slumber Party Massacre is beyond the obvious of the title, the original featured a denim-clad killer who used a power drill to massacre teenagers who were, as you would guess, were having a slumber party. The sequels took it in some different directions. They kept the drill part, but there was more of a silly, like, half musical guitar themed vibe to the second film.
I remember the second one very well. For the life of me, I cannot remember anything about the third one. It's like literally escaped my brain. I
have to admit, like, I remember thinking it was alright, but definitely the least interesting of the three. And but I agree. I don't really remember much about the third one off the top of my head. But I don't remember it being. I mean, none of them are technically good movies per se, but you know what I mean. Like, I don't remember it being like painfully bad to watch. Right, I think compared to the first two, it just wasn't as interesting or memorable, clearly. So, but yes, so we have this new reboot of it, and I was curious getting into this, like, cause when I read the description, I actually thought it might be doing like an in-continuity thing, because like I read, someone returns to this place 30 years after their mother was attacked by a driller killer, and I thought, 30 years, that might actually, like, is this might be the daughter of a character in one of the original films? And it's not. It's a new character. They sort of do their own prologue set in the past at the start of this movie. But it does feature a group of late teens, early college age. It's a bit ambiguous, honestly, as to exactly what age they are. Going out to a cabin to have a girls' weekend. There's some twists and turns, but of course, once again, the driller killer Russ is back, and murders are afoot. So, I mean. There is some swerves in this that shake things up a little bit, and we can't really talk about them until spoilers, but do be known that they are there. It's got a bit more going than just there's killings going on in the woods. And
yes.
To be fair, I mean, it's not a new setting for a slasher movie, far from it, but it is new for this franchise. Yeah, well, because the first one is just like a house in the suburbs, and the second one was also a house, but it was like a fancy house, basically. Yeah,
it's and this is maybe one of my big complaints about the movie is I don't know if I would consider this a slumber party. Like, I feel like a slumber party has to be at someone's house, right? Like, if you're going to a cabin in the woods, like, That's got to be like, I would call that like a weekend getaway or a road trip. Yeah, like that's not a slumber party.
Yeah, I mean, Slumber Party is a title, is a very American thing. We never called anything a slumber party, growing up here. But
I don't know, I mean, I hope this doesn't come off as sexist, but are slumber parties, is that like a girl thing? Because I feel like growing up, we always had sleepovers. I never.
Yeah. It probably is. Maybe it's like a combination of being skewed more towards girls, but also being like an older thing. Like maybe like by the time we were kids having these types of things, they weren't called that anymore, or at least in the US. Maybe they were never called that here, but yeah, sleepover.
They had to rebrand because slumbering was no longer cool. Sleeping was the new thing.
Well, they had to rebrand it because it was getting too associated with the word massacre, so they had to.
That's true.
That's true. Which is why we should make a movie called Sleepover Massacre.
Yeah.
Which is completely not ripping anything off. It's a completely original idea. Nothing's ever been done in that genre before.
We'll have it take place in Texas.
The Texas Sleepover Massacre. Where the killer kills them with sleepovers. Hey, you know what? Leatherface only killed one person with a chainsaw in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so it wouldn't even be comparatively that disingenuous to call it the Sleepover Massacre and have no sleepover related deaths.
That's true. Yeah.
So
that's fair.
That's fine. So yes, but there is.
You could use a sleeping bag, but that's kind of Jason's thing.
It's a very Jason thing. I would say the first thing I'd say is that this is definitely in tone with like the originals, in that it has both a little bit of the first film in it, and it also has a little bit of the comedy meta stuff from the second film, where it's almost like a cartoon at points with some of its jokes or logic. And there are definitely jokes. There's definitely things that are meant to be played for laughs. So it's got a little bit of the DNA of the films, and it does kind of feel like the director here, Danishka Esterze, I'm probably butchering that name, but forgive me, who continues this franchise all being directed by women, which it doesn't surprise me in this one, because there's definitely some sort of meta or modern stuff in this one that kind of pokes fun at the genre tropes. But when you watch the original Slumber Party Massacre, it's like, well, this is a woman directed this is like every other sleazy slasher movie. What's going on?
Hey, women can be sleazy too.
Sure, yeah. It's just surprising in this context. That's all. I mean, arguably, this one's sleazy from a feminine perspective. Mm-hmm. Admittedly, it's kind of the joke in a lot of ways. It's just, it's more of a joke than it is a genuine attempt at sleaze. Not that anyone cares.
Yeah. Right. But, I mean, it all ties into the, as you put it, the swerve, which we can't really get into at the moment.
The swerve.
God, I wish I could talk about it right now, but we simply can't. We must wait for spoilers. God damn it.
I suppose I'll just ask the question then, Timmy. What are your general feelings on the 2021 version of Slumber Party Massacre?
In terms of like regular movies, I thought it was okay. In terms of like movies on the Sci-Fi Channel, I would say it's a masterpiece.
it's the Citizen Kane.
Yeah, I mean, I would gladly watch this like a million times before having to watch like a whatever Sharknado, Lavantula, whatever like those other movies are. They do have like other. They do. I was kind of breezing through the app because I can't just watch stuff now. I have to, every time I need to watch something, I have to download a new app on the everything has an app. I have these apps on my phone, on my TV. It's ridiculous. Like it sucks because honestly, I would just love to watch everything on my PlayStation, but it doesn't have apps for everything. So sometimes it's like, all right, well, if I want to watch this, I got to go to the PlayStation. If I want to watch this, then I got to go to the Apple TV. It's getting ridiculous. I don't know what we're gonna do. But yeah, I was looking at some of the other stuff on the app, and they do have some good stuff on there. Like The Boy was on there, the new Leprechaun movie was on there. So I was like, all right, not all sci-fi movies are bad, but obviously those aren't sci-fi original movies. So, I heard like some pretty decent buzz about this. Like I think when this came out around the same time as another big return to a big franchise horror movie, so that was taking up a lot of the discussion last week. But in between those little cracks of of people screaming "Evil dies tonight," there are some people that are whispering, hey, this Slumber Party Massacre remake's actually not that bad, and yeah, I mean, I agree. I do think it's it definitely does feel like like a low budget movie, which sometimes works in its favor. And there again, it's kind of hard to talk about because there's so much of kind of what makes it interesting and unique is that kind of like twist or subversion kind of thing that happens halfway-ish through or so, which I did think was neat. It was kind of an interesting idea, and there's like a lot of comedy and stuff in it. I don't think, just for me personally, sometimes the comedy was like a little too much. Like there's some things like I feel like, especially with a lot of like the boys stuff in the boy cabin and like guy 1 and guy 2, like I was trying to get like, all right, guy, we get the joke, come on. But then there's other parts where I did laugh, so some of it did work for me. But yeah, I mean, sorry if I don't sound too enthusiastic. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't think it was like the best thing in the world. It's a very good, like, yeah, I guess like stumbling across it on sci-fi kind of watch,
yeah, I mean, I think the first that I have in terms of compliments is that, unlike a lot of reboots or remakes, this does kind of feel like the people making it actually wanted to pay homage to like, it felt like a bit of a love letter in a lot of ways, which I wasn't expecting. Like, of all the franchises that have had remakes where, like, Halloween remake where it feels like it's shitting all over the original, or just these bland generic things that are just sort of like taking the property and just churning out a movie like Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, Slumber Party Massacre, of all of them, is the one where it feels like the director and writer were intentionally putting in things and like references and nods, and
it's a very good point.
Try to keep the tone of what that movie was, and even a bit of the second one, which is one that a lot of people remember even more so than the first one. So I'll say it right now, I did not expect the killer to be wearing denim, but sure enough, the all denim killer is back, and that was kind of like, I kind of popped a little bit when I saw him in his denim jacket.
Popped a little bit.
Popped, yes. It's a wrestling term. It means that it's when the crowd cheers. When you...
Oh.
It's like...
I thought it meant like you came or something.
No, it does not mean but yes, I also thought it was pretty decent overall. I think there's things that I like quite a bit about it. There's definitely moments that I found myself smiling at the referencing, or not referencing the original, although there's a couple of those that made me smile, but more referencing of like genre tropes and how it was subverting them. There's a couple of nice little jokes here or there. There's a couple of fun kills. The CG on the kills is a little bit here or there, but it's one of those things where I appreciate, because I was kind of worried that because it was technically going straight to sci-fi that it was going to be very neutered, and maybe there's a couple of kills that arguably are a little neutered, but then there's other kills that clearly aren't. There's other kills where they clearly just did what they wanted to, and it's fine. So it's like, okay, I guess it's just, they're just picking and choosing and keeping some mystery to some of them, which is fine.
They did have to blur the butt though.
Yeah, I wonder, because I noticed today, because we both watched obviously the sci-fi version, and I noticed today that Shout put out a tweet saying, oh hey, it's available like at regular on-demand places now. So I wonder if you get it on like iTunes or wherever, if that's still pixelated, or if, or maybe that's just the joke, because it is pixelated, so it makes it look dirtier almost. I don't know. It's possible. But yes, maybe you'll get uncensored dude's ass and the non-sci-fi version. But I did think there's some ropey acting here or there, which I mean, I'd say none of the acting's particularly good, but there's like a couple of like pretty bad actors here or there as well.
I think most I liked all the women characters. It was more I feel like the actual guys and stuff that yeah, like where I noticed more of like kind of the bad acting, but I think maybe that might have been kind of part of like, trying to kind of, subvert tropes though. Like I wonder if maybe that was a little intentional to have kind of, like usually in the horror movies you have like a lot of especially like when you're dealing with like, kind of like, 80s slasher kind of tropes, and you have like, more like kind of the ditzy like hot girls and stuff, and I feel like maybe they're kind of trying to do that like with a lot of like the guy characters here in this.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I mean, it works in moments, but there's definitely other times where it just felt like it was just hamming up a little bit too much.
For sure, yeah.
But I also do think it looks quite cheap, which isn't a problem because it's not like the originals were expensive movies.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a problem with modern cheap in that it does just kind of come off looking like a TV show most of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do think sci-fi streaming quality leaves a little to be desired. The dark scenes especially looked kind of pixelated and kind of murky. Not crystal clear or anything like that. And it's one of those things where I'll take the grainy of a low budget film from a time when stuff was shot on film over digital like noise and digital pixelation. It's just far more or less visually appealing to me. But so I had a kind of crappy look to it most of the time.
Yeah. Well, as Jack once told Kate, we got to go back. They had to go back to the island, and we got to go back to film.
Yes. I'm on board with
reference
this.
From Lost.
Yes, I got the Lost reference. Yes, yes, I did watch Lost quite religiously when it was airing.
Okay.
Yes. And then now that makes us kind of old because we watched Lost as it aired. Now all the little Zoomers there, Lost is like a retro show to them now.
I have like I don't buy like a lot of stuff on iTunes, but I have like one like episode of Lost that I bought on iTunes because I missed it, and it was like and that was like I think I was in college at the time, and obviously I didn't have like DVR or TiVo or whatever in college, and there was no demand at the time, so I was like I actually bought an episode of the TV show on iTunes.
Oh really?
I think it was like the season premiere or something, so I was like stoked.
Do you remember how much that individual episode cost?
Oh God, I mean it's probably like not like super expensive, but it's probably like $5 or something.
Okay, I'm just curious what the pricing was like back when it was there. I feel like it's like $2 or $3 an episode if you're not. But I mean, it's stupid to do that. You just buy the season; it's much cheaper. But
right.
But yes, so yeah, so it looks kind of crappy most of the time. And not just like it's because there's obviously some very good looking TV shows. I don't want to throw all TV under the bus here, but it looked like it looked like
Lost.
What?
Like Lost is a good looking TV show.
Sure, yes, Lost was often a good looking TV show, but like I guess sci-fi. I guess is what I'm getting at here. A lot of sci-fi shows look like
Chucky.
this. Yes, Chucky to a point. I'd say Chucky looks better than this.
Yeah, no, I agree. Chucky's a good looking show.
I wouldn't say Chucky's a good looking show. I'd say it's better than this. I'd say Chucky's about average.
Mm.
Okay.
Did you watch the Day of the Dead show yet?
I haven't. You know what? I didn't hear good things, and no one was talking about it, so I did not make it a priority.
Okay.
Did you watch it?
No, but I feel like my curiosity is kind of getting the better of me. I'm not like super excited for it, but now that I got this app on my TV, I guess I might as well use it.
The disdain of which you say, now I have this app on my TV, I might as well use it, is palpable to me. Palpable.
A lot of palp.
So, yes. But, so, that to weigh in the negatives too much, though, because there are positives here. I do think that it's an easy watch. It moves fairly brisk. I will say that it does kind of shake things up more than once, where there's a point where it feels like it really should be ending, but there's like 30 minutes left. And not in the sense that you're ready for it to end, more that it's like, wait, after this, how does this? What's the last half hour going to be if this is where we are now? Kind of feeling, and admittedly, I do think that last chunk is probably the weakest section of the movie.
Yeah.
I guess it's partly because it's the part that has to try and take itself a bit more seriously and sort of treat it like there's more of a threat. And this movie was never good at doing that. This movie was good at playing games with the tropes and having fun with the slasher villain stuff and the kills and the cheesiness.
And I will also say there's kind of like two like big surprises in the movie. So the one that you kind of find out halfway through, that did actually get me. But then the second one you kind of get in this like last little chunk, like this last third or whatever. I thought that one was like a lot more obvious. So then it was kind of like when they were taking their time getting to it, I did kind of feel like, all right, let's hurry it up. Yeah, I think we kind of know where this is going.
I mean, there's part of it that I kind of appreciate, and it's kind of riffing on another horror movie a little bit, and I can kind of appreciate that, but yeah, the actual playing out of it wasn't that exciting or entertaining, and I do think that, yeah, the last like 25 minutes are easily the weakest section of the movie, and it, going back to it feeling like a TV show, it does kind of feel like a bit of the hour market. It could have wrapped up. It could have wrapped up there, and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
It would have been much of a dramatic ending, admittedly, if it wrapped up there, but still.
Yeah. But and again, I do feel bad if it's coming off a little too negative, because overall I did enjoy this movie. I wouldn't say I hated it or disliked it at all. But yeah, it's just it definitely has like it's not perfect. It has some flaws and stuff, but you said, it's perfectly enjoyable.
It's better than Halloween Kills,
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean,
take that.
Who would have thought that, like, the big, like theater opening, next installment in the Halloween franchise would be a lot worse than the, straight to sci-fi Slumber Party Massacre remake.
It is a surprise, to be sure. It is a slumber party treat. Not a trick. A treat.
Right. Yes.
So I'll try to tie it into Halloween, everyone. Honestly, we probably have to get into it. There's not really much more we can talk about without talking about the actual
Finally, yes.
elements of the movie and to get to spoilers. So, I'll just, it's worth watching. It's worth watching. Just one final thing in terms of it feeling like a TV show is that they also have built-in ad break kind of moments where it kind of fades to black like a cliffhanger, and that really, like, it's like, okay, all right, it's a TV movie. Like, you don't have to beat me over the head with the fact that it's a TV movie.
Yeah, like this month, I've probably watched more commercials than I have in like the last 10 years combined. So I've been watching Chucky on live TV. So it's like commercials on that. There's commercials on this. I've been watching a lot of Tubi, which has commercials. Peacock had commercials when I was watching Halloween Kills.
Oh, really? You didn't go for the premium Peacock? You just got the commercial version?
Well, yeah, whatever the like cheapest version I had, which I think is like $5 or something, but you have commercials, and then whatever the next tier up is, I'm not paying for that.
Oh, that's so weird. You watched a brand new movie day one on release day at home with commercials interrupted. That's kind of funny. Yeah. No, it's not even so much the commercials themselves that's the problem. It's more that it's built like a network TV show, not like a movie that's been split up after the fact, where it builds to these little cliffhangers for the ad breaks. With the exception of one that just took place in the middle of a chase, and it kind of felt like, oh, we need another ad break in there. Shit, we didn't build something in. Just sort of fade to black and have a sting, and then we'll continue the chase immediately after. That was a weird sort of, I don't know. It's one of those little things. It feels like the format's kind of getting in the way a little bit. I do think I'd almost like to see it slightly re-edited, not by much, just a little bit, to kind of minimize those ad break pauses and just those little things that kind of make it feel more TV show esque. Because it kind of ruined the pacing at points. I felt so.
Well, I'll see what I can do.
Yes, get on it, Tim.
I'll talk to some of the people at Shout.
Yes. So but I do wonder if there's any difference in the non-sci-fi version. Like if you get it on iTunes now or rent it, whatever, like do you get the same little breaks? Not like actual ad breaks, but the little, like, the sting and the fade to black, or did they I imagine you probably do, but there's always the chance they've got a slightly different edit for the non-TV version. But
yeah,
I don't know. I'd be curious. If anyone checks out that version, do let us know in the comments, because I'm genuinely interested.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about spoilers. Spoilers for Slumber Party Massacre 2021. So there's a sort of it's more like 10 minutes. 10-minute prologue segment at the start, which is the Slumber Party, which we hear is in the 90s. I mean, I guess no one had their phones out, so that's what tells you it's a period piece. Nothing about the clothes or what they were talking about, I don't think, stuck out to me as being 90s-esque, but, whatever. They're in a cabin in the woods, so I guess it's less obvious. They're in nature. Nature looks pretty similar.
Yeah.
to the present day. But yes, so they're having a slumber party, they're having pizza, whatever. The main first thing to talk about is that the girl who goes out to the car runs into her ex-boyfriend, and the ex-boyfriend's there for reasons, try to make up with her because he cheated on her, some. His acting, I thought, was particularly bad in this scene, and I was like, oh no. Like I got concerned because it was like the very first scene with dialogue in the movie. But the reason why I'm even setting this up and explaining this is because there's a whole beat with this character that I really want to discuss, which is so the girl goes back inside and all the girls in their pajamas and underwear start dancing, and it's almost like a homage to the classic Slumber Party Massacres, because this ex-boyfriend goes over to the window and he starts watching, and I'm like, oh, okay, this was a scene that was in a couple of the originals where there'd be guys watching the girls through the window. This takes it one step further, where he starts to undo his zip and is going to just knock one out right there through the window.
Sure.
So what I want to talk about, though, is actually that as he's doing this, he notices that on the opposite window on the other side of this cabin, the killer is watching, and he gets very offended and says, oh, who is this sick pervert? And sort of storms around to go and scare off whoever this other guy is. And I'm like, you were just doing the same thing. In fact, you were. If it was worse, because you were actually going to town yourself. You might have just been peeping, which, I mean, it's not much better, but it's objectively less bad.
I mean, yeah, I think this was intentional. I think it's a joke.
No, it is a joke, but I just the way he stormed off, in outrage, oh, this pervert, I'm going to show him. I want to show him. I think, I guess it's commented on, guys who talk the game but are actually just as skeevy as someone else. I get what it's doing, but this character was not self-aware. Admittedly, I think if this came after we met all the other guys later on in the movie, I probably wouldn't have even thought much of this, and I just gotten the joke and moved on. But because this is the first male character we see in the movie, it really stuck out to me just how oblivious he was. But he gets killed, obviously, and then the girls kind of quickly get killed off one by one, some off camera. It's not really until there's the girl who goes to open the door at the front who gets the drill all the way through her neck. I thought this looked, I mean, it looks a little bit fake, don't get me wrong, but I thought the overall idea of it was quite fun, which is you can actually kind of see the drill poking through the back of her neck for a bit before it actually comes through. So you see, so you get kind of like a lump almost, and then it pops through. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, no, yeah, not bad. And it's it's a little tough because a lot of the gore, it does, I don't know how much, if any, of it was really practical. It does look mostly CG, but but it's not horrible. I've definitely seen a lot worse.
I think it helps they don't keep the camera on it for too long in a single take. They kind of cut around. They try and obscure it as best they can, whilst for certain kills, making it feel like you're still seeing a lot, like this one. Because I was a little bit worried after, because when the guy dies at the window, I thought, you don't really see anything. It's just kind of over there. But what I do want to say though is that the killer himself, I actually love the killer's performance. He does this thing where he just always has this kind of like kind of like tilted head, kind of like demented, looking down at whoever he's looking at. And actually, when he goes to kill or sort of, quote unquote final girl at the start of the movie, he says "I love you" before he does it in a sort of really kind of soft voice. And I'd forgotten he'd done this, so later on in the movie when he did it again where he says, "Oh, you're also beautiful," I was like, oh yeah, I forgot he talked at the start. It was kind of a surprise.
And I couldn't remember, is this like a thing from the first movie?
I don't remember.
Did he ever say "I love you"?
Yeah, I don't remember. Maybe he did. It feels so specific that maybe he did say that once in the first movie.
It was hard to tell if it was like a reference or something, but I mean, yeah, either way though, I liked it as well. Like, it is very weird and creepy and like kind of off-putting. Like, yeah, because he's doing these very horrific things, and he has like this very big drill, and just like looking at him, yeah, you kind of expect he's gonna have, like, if he does speak, that he'll have like a big gruff voice, but yeah, just this very soft kind of like high little voice just saying like "I love you." It's like, I was like, oh, what is this?
Yeah, and the movie does not hide the phallic like symbolism of the drill.
Oh sure.
The fact that he's not even just got like a regular little power drill, he's got this big, 2 foot long drill, whatever it is. Like, it's intentionally super phallic.
It's very huge.
and there's even like the direct dialogue later on about I'm going to give this to you. And then the drill stops working, and she's like, "Oh, performance issues," and like they're not shy about dealing with. In many ways, the movie is kind of a play on like weird toxic masculinity.
Oh sure.
Maybe not all the time, but whenever there's a male character on screen, there's definitely some ideas and thoughts, kind of poking fun at it at the very least. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit, when he first appeared on screen, I did say, wow, will you look at the size of that drill?
I'm sure you said that in the exact same way. And I'm sure your wife gave you the side eye. Or actually, no, I bet your wife went, "Nah, I've seen bigger."
Yeah.
Which is a line later in the movie, actually.
Yeah.
Referring to a statue. So anyway, I actually kind of liked how the final girl here gets away. She gets like a tin of food and puts it on the end of the drill when he tries to drill her, and then it gets stuck in the end, and he has to kind of like pull it off. It won't spin with the thing on the end. She basically puts like a muzzle or whatever, I don't know, like whatever you want to call it, on the end of the drill.
What?
Yeah. Well, no, because the silencer still lets the gun function.
Yeah, well, it kind of looks like a silencer. I don't know.
And the drill's so big that he's having to actually kind of stretch to, like, he has to like sort of bring it in a bit to stretch and like pull the tin off. But it
looks cool in the movie, but it's not the most practical weapon.
No. He's really like he's really attached to using that drill as a killer. Unlike the second killer later on, we're in spoilers, so I can say that, who's a lot more open to different weapons and tools and devices. But he has this showdown with the girl on the pier. She's able to kick him into the water, and it's sort of like, okay, everyone just presumes that he died, and the titles play out as he's like slowly sinking into the water. And then we cut to present day, and it's actually the daughter of the survivor who is our main character in present day, and she's going with her friends for a weekend. Her mother's super, nervous about it, and she has like 4 locks on her door and all the rest of it. But she meets up with her friends. One of her friends' little sister, who's like a teenager, snuck into the car, and they all end up having to sort of just say, okay, well, we're too far now. Turning back's going to take too long. Let's just keep her with us. And, there's a lot of this. And then it does a sort of joke cut to like the car being broken down and like them having it checked because something's not working. You need a part, fluid, something. I don't know cars. But
it's like a leak in the radiator hose or something.
This actually had the first joke in it, though, that I really liked this scene. So you've got the mechanic who's kind of like explaining, this isn't really a a service station anymore. It's just it's just for getting fuel.
Station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, but we need to. Well, there's a place over there, but they won't have the part until they'll have to get it delivered or whatever. It'll take at least a day. And the girl who I'll call the slutty one, although technically it's a bit of an act, but the slutty girl who's wearing a top from the original, actually, the shirt she's wearing was what one of the characters in the original movie wears.
Oh wow.
But she sort of like pulls her top down a little bit and squeezes her boobs together and says, "How about now?" And the guy completely just deadpan goes, "I don't see how that's going to help." Actually, that was a funny.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was a good joke. Because I think it's because you expect so many characters in this to be complete sleazeballs that this guy just being like normal and be like, yeah, that's not really going to affect the fact that the part is still needed. Like, I can't make it appear because your boobs are nice. Like, it doesn't work like that.
And again, it's just kind of a nice like subversion of that trope where I feel like in a lot of these movies you'll see like these these hot teens or whatever like are stopping somewhere to get fuel, and there's like creepy redneck that hits on one of them and they're disgusted, and then it's just kind of like a nice little opposite of that.
So some stuff here with them. They meet the woman who like gives it, because they don't actually make it to the place they're supposed to go. Technically, I say technically because it turns out they wanted to break down and go to this place. More on that in a minute. But yeah, so the next part of the movie is them being introduced to this house by the lake that they're being allowed to stay in for the night, and they start drinking and they're dancing. The mechanic shows up to drop off the part and gets killed by our driller killer. You don't really see this one. You see the aftermath of it though when you see his eyes been drilled out, which is fun enough.
I think it's kind of interesting here that like you don't really see or at least I don't think that you see much of the killer, but the like gas station guy knows who he is, because you see as soon as like he sees him, he's like very nervous and like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you'd be here. I'll let me leave. But yeah, it doesn't get away.
Presumably he's still been working in town. Although that said though, lots of other people seem to know who he is exactly. Like he's the killer, so they know his name. Yeah, so that's a bit weird.
Yeah, I think one thing that was kind of I don't want to say like confusing, like it's not like it was hard to follow, but one thing I wasn't sure about in the movie was exactly like how active this killer is, because I mean, first of all, I thought he died in the beginning, so I was kind of surprised when he was back, but like without any explanation or whatever. It's just like okay. And then also presumably like it seems like people know who he is like around town and stuff, so it's just like, all right, does he do this often? Like no one does anything. Like obviously it's like a small town or whatever, but he's just kind of allowed to do whatever. Like I don't know. Yeah,
well, they did mention that there's like 20 women have went missing over the last 30 years in this area, so that implies that he's at least killing one every year or two.
Okay, sure.
So assuming that it's all him that's responsible.
Yeah,
maybe one or two are some traveling killer, or
for sure, you gotta figure that.
or maybe a bear. Like
sure, yeah. There's bears in the woods.
There's other reasons that there's bears in the woods. They may or may not defecate in the woods.
Sure, sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, when the occasion calls for it. The occasion being nature.
Of course, right.
We can move on now. No, I mean this part of the movie is just kind of there's occasionally some lines that are amusing from the characters. Like one girl's kind of the ditzy one. The younger one who sort of tagged along is kind of always not being a little shit per se, but just kind of like always having kind of an attitude, always having a little bit of a contrarian opinion to the older kids. If they're even kids at this point, I don't even know. But it's the younger one who finds the body of the mechanic, and his eyes are missing. They've been drilled out, and blood pours out of his eyes all over her face. And I was like, okay, all right, we're getting into some hijinks now. And she comes back and explains that there's a killer out there, the mechanic's dead, and she's like, okay, I've been listening to this podcast. I don't know what it is about horror movie reboots and podcasting being such a big plot point, but she's like, I've been listening to this true crime podcast about the serial killer who, you know, attacked these she doesn't seem to know that her sister's friend is the daughter of the survivor of this massacre. That doesn't seem to be something she knows. But she goes on like a rant, and then it's revealed all the girls then pull out weapons, and it's revealed that they actually sabotaged their car because they wanted to try and mimic the events of the original massacre as much as they could to lure the killer, believing that he's alive. Why they, I mean, I guess it's because there's more people have been missing in the last 20 years. I guess that's why they think he's alive, but they don't really go into it too much. Let's not think about it too much. But they're like, no, we're here. We're here to lure the killer and kill him. We're going to kill that son of a bitch. And like, and it turns out they've not been drinking alcohol. They've been drinking water in alcohol bottles because they wanted to look like they're drinking alcohol. It's a little bit of a Final Girls kind of thing. Like, oh, we need to lure them in with tropes.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. And then and if you back up a little bit, like whatever 5-ish minutes beforehand, like I did find those scenes like kind of weird. Like they're just like dancing around and being like very like cliche girls at a slumber party, and it is kind of weird because like, well, earlier when they were in the car, like they kind of seemed like normal girls, and now like they're really playing up these stereotypes and stuff, and just being like, yeah, very ditzy and just like doing this silly dancing around to music, and it's kind of like, oh, this is weird. But then it's nice when you get this little reveal, because then it's like, oh, okay, that's why like that felt so off, because okay, they're playing a part and they're trying to lure him.
And it kind of immediately is like, okay, this is interesting. You're doing something different with this movie. I'm kind of intrigued now. And then like a couple of guys show up at the door. The little sister did see one of them across the water briefly earlier. And it's basically two guys. There's a group of 5 of them over in the house across the lake, and they're there to say hi. And I think this middle section is definitely my favorite part of the movie, from the reveal of like why they're there. But it's not even just that on its own though. It's like I think some of the stuff with these guys is kind of delightfully weirdly amusing. Like as soon as they open the door and we're introduced to these two guys, the guy with the glasses, like when he's introduced to them and they're all standing there, he just kind of awkwardly pauses and then goes, "I have a girlfriend," and then like they all just kind of awkwardly stare, and I'm like, okay, that was kind of funny. I don't know why it's funny, but it's a little bit funny. And then they come in, and the girls are basically some of them are trying to keep them there because like, well, we can't let them go wandering around. There's a killer outside. Like, it's not safe. We have to, we're not here to let other people get killed, so we should do the right thing. But then the main girl's kind of like, nah, like we've got a plan. We should stick to the plan, and we should let them go. And sure enough, they do. But it's all this stuff that comes after, where I was like, okay, they're kind of teasing things that are like, when it comes to the guys and they're in their cabin and they're trying to rip the pillow, I thought, oh, is this like a joke? This is like the guy version of a pillow fight, is them like daring each other, like, oh, I bet you can't rip a pillow open with your bare hands. Like, is this the macho version of the pillow fight? But it went one step further. When the girls do decide to come over and try and help them and sort of tell them what's going on, they get to the window and we get a proper subversion where they're the ones outside the window looking in, as we get this ridiculous slow motion sequence after the pillow's been ripped and the feathers are flying everywhere in slow motion, where they are legitimately having a pillow fight. The guys who for no reason have all taken their tops off, which again is a wonderful reference because that's something that happened in some, like, I think Slumber Party Massacre 2, I remember thinking, why are they just taking their tops off and doing this in their underwear? This makes no sense. Same thing with the guys here. Like, it's a funny subversion. I think it works well enough on its own, but I think if you've seen the originals, this is especially funny.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, I was into most of this stuff. I mean, you kind of implied you hated the constant joke about Guy 1 and Guy 2.
That really got me. That was just annoying, and like, not even like it's like a horrible joke, but I think just a lot of the way it was being delivered is it was like very like winky, like to the camera, like, get it, like they're both named like Guy, and it's like, oh, like a generic like, this is just like guy one gets killed off, two gets killed off. Like, it's just all very, I don't know, just a little too in your face and kind of repetitive for me. That this was one joke I really didn't like, which hey, it's not everything worked, but again, a lot of the stuff beforehand though I did think was really funny. Like, yeah, like the slow motion pillow, stuff was funny, and a lot of the jokes beforehand worked. It's just, this one just wasn't for me.
Yeah, I think it's a subversion that works. Like later on, the guy with the glasses, when he gets killed because he goes for a shower, like we just have he's the one who strips down, and it's just kind of like, oh, this is just him getting naked for no reason. Or even like right after the pillow fight, when the girls come in, and there's like a weird scene where the lights are going off and on, and the killer comes in and like murders one of the guys, and they have this conversation afterwards where it becomes like, the girls explain that they've got a plan, that they've came here to track this killer down, and the guys all know who the killer is because they're all fans of this podcast. They're doing like this tour of like, oh, this is like famous murder locations kind of thing. Which, okay, fair enough. But yeah, so that's why they're there, and I enjoyed when it kept kind of like playing into like the subverting the tropes where the guys basically agree that the girls, okay, that's a good plan, but then immediately start making their own plan because they're the men, and they start going, okay, I'm going to go down here, you two go there, and you two go there, and we'll track down. And the guy who's giving it all these orders is holding this ridiculous guitar as a weapon, which again, a little homage to the second film.
Yeah, that was the same guitar that the killer used in that one, right?
It wasn't the same, no. It was as silly as that one, but it wasn't the same.
Oh, okay.
I mean, not just because there was no drill head. I think even the body was a little bit different, but it was coolly, winking back to that though.
It's supposed to be about that, yeah.
But there was a lot of little details here where they try to form this plan, and the girls sort of butt in and go, "Hey, you're being stupid. We already have a plan. No one should split up." And the guy who's been saying all these orders is putting on his zipper, and he's like, yeah, no, actually, no, you've got a point, yeah. And he zips it up, and then his hoodie says "bros before hoes," and then immediately he says, "Now let's go and find this bad guy, and we'll keep you girls safe." And it's like it becomes this just kind of, and the girls just kind of like, and the one guy who's acting kind of normal, sort of the main guy who's been doing most of the talking when they first came to the house. He like seems to kind of agree with the girls for the most part, and the girls say, "You're not going with them, are you? Like, this is dumb." And he's like, "Yeah, I agree. You guys are right, but my toxic masculinity is just kind of, forcing me to do it." So he just goes with them anyway. Maybe him actually using the phrase toxic masculinity would be a step too far, because it's kind of beating you over the head with a joke. But everything up until that point I thought was really funny, with the guys just kind of like making their dumb plan, which is just going to get them all killed, ignoring the girls who've got a plan and have thought this through. I thought it was okay.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, it's fun.
So, okay, just fun. Okay, no more thoughts.
Nope.
All right. Well, there's a couple more kills. I did enjoy. So the guy with the guitar, he gets killed. The drill smashes up the guitar, and it, like, one of the guitar strings gets caught on the end of the drill. So when he's drilling his face with the drill, the guitar string is going like a propeller.
That one was cool. Yeah,
that was it was a good visual. We were seeing it from behind, and then like him having to like pull the string out of the, because guitar strings are metal. For anyone who's not played the guitar, like, those guitar strings, especially on electric guitars, are metal, so they're pretty lethal feeling if you like try and like not that I've ever tried to strangle someone with one, but you can kind of feel when you're tightening them and you're kind of like messing with them that they feel like they could do a lot of damage, especially going at a speed like that around a drill.
That's right.
But yeah, so they get back to the house. They actually kill the killer. This is the big thing. We're about 2/3 out of the movie, and they're able to actually successfully murder him. Where their whole plan plays out, where they make it look like one of them's been stabbed through the door, but she wasn't really, and then they all sort of jump out with their weapons and whatnot, and they actually kill him dead. And then we actually jump to the morning, where it's nice and bright and sunny, and we have the last act of the movie play out in daylight, which it kind of bugged me a little bit, because it kind of feels like, okay, I get that you want it to be different, and this solidifies that we're in like a new phase of the movie and whatnot, but you know what, slasher movie stuff just plays better at night, and well, I don't think it would have necessarily saved the killer and the deaths like, from this point on. I do think it would have improved it a little bit than just having it all play out in daytime.
That's fair.
It's one of those things that makes it feel more low budget, and I know a lot of it was already at night, so it's not like they weren't doing night shoots, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. I do like that they, like they're, you know, that again they're very like proactive and smart about it. Like, you know, there isn't any like running away or like, oh, he's probably dead, so we can ignore him now. Like, you know, they like they beat him for like a long ass time, and then they like watch the body the whole night to make sure, like, you know, like it is like, you know, there's a very meta feel to it where like they realize that they're in a horror movie, so they're like, no, we want to make sure that he's dead, he's not getting up, so we're gonna like stay right here.
Even though like he's not really shown signs of like coming back to life, but like, I mean, I know technically people assumed he was dead, but he fell in the water. Like, it's pretty believable that he just, you know, swam and got out. It's not that, you know, far fetched. But yeah, they stab him repeatedly after he's already dead, and like the main girl's insistent that they watch the body, although the little sister of the other character kind of gets bored and stops doing it at a certain point. And then the other big twist, if you want to call it that, towards the end of the movie, because the deaths start happening again, where, you know, the what was supposed to be the ditzy girl turns out to be quite a good mechanic, and she's working on the car and fixing it. And she has a pretty fun death where the killer, this new killer, turns on the engine, and the blade in the engine like sort of slices her face up. It was just a fun death, you know. Legs are sticking out of the car because the hood's down and there's blood spurting about. That's kind of a fun moment. That's all right. Then there's some nail gun antics, with nails coming through the window, and like, you know, having to duck and dive, and the one girl gets the nail through the eye, which kills her. So I think the problem with this last section though is that all of a sudden they're all not prepared anymore, and they actually have to take it seriously. Yeah. It's kind of like, for the first 2/3 of the movie, the main cast for the most part are kind of completely safe, and then the last third, of course, and I get why you want the threat to rise and you want them to now be in danger, but it kind of like, nothing that worked about this movie before was actually like worrying about them being killed. So once they start getting emotional and like, oh my god, our friend's dead, and oh no, we have to try and get out of here alive, I was like, I don't know if I really want this from you, movie.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like them being a little bit more badass and proactive instead of like, you know, it's not like they completely fall to like, you know, just completely helpless like horror movie tropes or whatever. But yeah, it was a lot more fun seeing them being prepared and like taking charge and stuff beforehand versus now where it is starting to feel a little bit more like a basic horror movie. Yeah,
so it's a bit more generic, and you know, by the numbers at this point. The big twist, of course, is it's actually the older woman from the shop that gave them the house that is actually the mother of the killer and is now getting revenge in the last half hour. I appreciate that this is kind of like doing like an inverse Friday the 13th in a lot of ways, where she comes after the Jason killing spree, if you want to call it that. So, you know, I get maybe the fun of and the idea of doing that. I don't think it's actually that interesting or exciting when you find out that it's her, or when you see her going like, you know, one-on-one with her main character, or when the main character's mum shows up and has like a duel with her. I don't really think I care all that much.
It's like, it's not horrible, it wasn't as fun as the stuff beforehand, so it feels like, you know, like you're just going downhill a little bit instead of like everything kind of rocketing up to like this big explosion awesome finale. Instead it's kind of like, all right, yeah, this is fine, but I don't know, not as cool as what we just saw.
Well, I think part of the problem is that, you know, it stops being that tongue-in-cheek, so that's a kind of a problem, and it's kind of trying to take itself seriously, which is it's not as good at. But the other thing is, the killer before was fun. Like, he was so over the top and animated, and the way he looked at people, the way he kind of like really loved his drill and wanted to penetrate people with his drill. Like, all of that was very entertaining, and every time he was on screen, I was being entertained. And this old woman just isn't as threatening, isn't as funny, isn't as I don't know. There's no presence with her. She's just kind of like, it's more believable they can put up a fight, obviously, because it's just an old woman. But
yeah,
it's not as fun. And they have the one callback where the mother gets like stabbed in the hand, but she's like, I've got no feeling in that hand because I got a drill go through it 30 years ago. So they're able to fight back and win. And the movie just ends with all the surviving characters hugging, which is basically the big sister and little sister, our main character, and the mum are the survivors. And it ends there. It just cuts to credits.
She ends up running towards like I think it was the mother, and then she didn't she like pick up the drill off the ground and basically like run into it.
It was a drill bit, yeah, because when the first killer was fighting with the main character, her blade actually cut off the drill bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, she picks up the drill bit at the end and stabs her with it. So, I guess like. I also struggled to feel like what the final 30 minutes was saying, if anything. Like, I feel like the first 2/3 of the movie, it's doing all these things with the genre, and it's having fun poking and subverting things. But you get to that last half hour, and it kind of feels like, it just feels like it has to, we have to have like an actual ending to a movie, so we have to do a more serious, like they're in danger kind of thing. And I don't necessarily feel like it... Like, I guess you could say, it's playing on the idea that this horrible mother is like blaming other women for how his son is, and she's kind of a bad influence on him and is part of the maybe you can sort of stretch it to some of that, but I just didn't really feel
she
it.
Like she even like blames the girls at one point because she says like, oh, like I wanted to put like wanted you just to go to sleep so you wouldn't tempt him, like it's their fault because
which was a fair statement and idea to have, don't get me wrong. Like, I get the desire to do it, but I don't think it really makes the final 30 minutes of this movie interesting. It's not enough, especially since they have to kind of treat her like more of a threat than the actual killer, because when they were dealing with the actual killer, everything was like, oh, this is kind of a fun game of cat and mouse because they're prepared for him. And okay, you can tell me, okay, we're not prepared for the second killer, which is why we're having a harder time and why it's tougher, but it still shouldn't feel like it's more difficult to this extent. It kind of, the way they take it so seriously, and I get why they take it seriously. Their friends start actually being killed as opposed to before,
right?
But the tone shift kind of robs it of its charm a little bit, and I think that's why the last half hour, well, not bad, not terrible, it just kind of is like, okay, we have to have a ending to the movie that has the drama that you expect from a slasher movie.
And also, it's like a little, I don't know, like I didn't have any problem with the mom, like the main character's mom, but I don't know, it's like hard to get like super psyched when she comes back because it's like, well, like we don't really know you that well, like we haven't seen you most of the movie, and like it might be different if this was, like a long running franchise and this was the return of a beloved character, like that might kind of work in that sense, but since it's like, like a character we don't really know that much, it's just like, oh yeah, I forgot that the mom said she was going to check up on him. Okay, I guess this works.
Yeah, it also doesn't really explain how the mom found her, because they didn't go to the place they were supposed to go.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I guess like the girls at the start, when she asked where are you going for the weekend, the two friends said different places, so maybe she just checked out both. And maybe that was the mistake, is that one of the girls said the real place as opposed to the fake location they were supposedly going to. So maybe that's how she... It almost feels like it's missing a subplot of her trying to find where they are. Like, her searching for her daughter and, like, maybe ramping up to the point where she's going to come in and make the save. Maybe it's less surprising when she makes a save in that case. But I don't know, it didn't have that much impact. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, I suppose I was expecting you to show up at some point.
Also, like, I mean... I don't know, like, I don't want to pick it apart too much because, like, I don't think you're supposed to be focusing on, like, these kind of parts of the movie, but it does feel kind of weird that it's like, like don't really know too much about these characters, and it's like, all right, like I don't know, like how do they really know so much like about this killer, and like how does she know, like, oh, like this is what my mom wants, and like this is why, like, oh, this will like finally set her free and make her like less afraid and stuff. Like, is the mom still talking about him and worrying about him? Like, is it that big a deal? Like, I don't know, like when did they hatch this plan? Like why are the other girls like so into it? I don't know. It's a dumb thing to think about, but
no, I agree with the last part. I agree with like how did the three other girls all be willing to try and take on a serial killer on their own with their friend?
Yeah.
And when I say on their own, I mean like on their own as a group of girls, and without police and like SWAT teams and whatever else you might want. So
if they are very confident. Sorry.
I was gonna say I agree with that part. I don't necessarily agree with the other part though, because I don't think she does know that this will help her mom. She just thinks it will. She thinks it will because her mother's scared all the time, and then maybe getting closure with the killer definitely being dead will finally let her be less of a hermit. Like that's the hope.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like we don't really spend like that much time with the characters in the beginning. That it's not like, oh, okay, I get like why this. It is something you need to do, why it's affecting your life. But I mean, it's whatever. It's not like a huge thing. Like, again, you're not supposed to think about it too much. Or at least, I don't think I am. But I don't know.
I think the biggest problem with the movie is probably that because of its subversion and kind of like playful nature that it has for the first 2/3, because we have these characters who are pretending to be tropes, a la Cabin in the Woods or Final Girls or whatever. But then you have the reveal that they're here to hunt the killer. So this was all a plan. This was all like this was all just a charade to like get the killer off his guard and sort of target them or whatever, right? But as all that stuff's playing out, and you have all the stuff with the guys and all that, all of it's very lighthearted, all of it's very easygoing, all of it feels like our main characters are not in any danger. It's really difficult, I think, for the audience to suddenly care that they're actually in danger in the last 25-30 minutes.
That's true, yeah.
Because they feel like they're untouchable for the first 2/3. So when they start being killed off in the back third, and they start like taking it very seriously and getting very emotional, it's hard to treat it with the attitude and reverence that it should. It wants to be demanding, because ultimately the first 2/3 of the movie did not put me in the place for this.
Sure.
I've been treating them like cartoon characters almost the whole movie, because they're untouchable, and the killer is this almost Wile E. Coyote character, and so it's really hard in the last 30 minutes to suddenly be like, oh, I need to take it seriously when they're crying over each other and saying, oh, we have to survive, and whatever, I'll risk my life to save you. I'm like, I can't take the drama seriously, because the movie has put me in too much of a fun, this is not that serious feeling the whole time.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's just basically it.
I agree with that, and it probably does sound maybe coming off like being like a little harsh, but again, it's like, it's not saying that this is like horrible, the worst thing, or like, oh, I hated this last part. It's like, oh no, it's just that, yeah, maybe it wasn't as good as it could have been, and it's just in relation to some of the other stuff they like better in the movie. Because yeah, again, overall, still did really enjoy the movie. Like, I definitely don't think it's a bad. Didn't have a bad time at all. I think you said earlier, it's like an easy watch. Like, yeah, you can put it on. I don't think you're gonna get bored. But yeah, you might not be like, wow, this is like my new favorite movie ever. But I think it is definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, it's not an amazing thing by any means, but it's definitely better than I think most people assumed that a Slumber Party Massacre remake in 2021 would probably turn out. So,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going for this that does not sound like it would be good at all. Like, it's a remake from a movie 30 something years ago. It's low budget. It's on sci-fi. It's like, yeah, a lot of the fact that it's not just watchable but actually kind of good is pretty surprising.
Yeah. So take the wins where you can, but doesn't mean it's perfect though, and there are things to kind of critique. And what's funny though is that if you compare it to the original films a little bit, I feel like this level of critique would never happen with the originals. And it's not that the originals were necessarily better, although I think I probably enjoy the first two at least more than this one. But I think the reason why this is lending itself to us to say this is why the last act doesn't work that well, when we would never really talk about the first two movies that way, is because this is trying to subvert things. It's trying to actually kind of play with the genre. Essentially it is trying to aim higher than those original films ever did. Those original films are just dumb slasher movies with schlocky ideas, and there's some subversion in the second one. The second one is definitely intentionally doing silly things with the tropes of the genre, but this one, it feels like it's actually trying to be this kind of almost meta commentary, or well, it's been a love letter, don't get me wrong, it's not like dissing on the franchise, but it does kind of feel like it's aiming a little higher, and because of that, if some things don't work, there's more to critique with this one, even though technically speaking this might actually be the most ambitious of the Slumber Party Massacre movies. So
sure.
So again, give credit where credit is due for that, but yeah, okay. I guess we can rate the movie. Timmy, what are you feeling?
I think I'm gonna go with a 6.5. To me, it's in that like good but not like really good to great kind of territory. I was surprised because I think more than horror, I'm like very critical about comedy. Like I can stomach like bad horror more than I can bad comedy. But surprisingly, I think a lot of the jokes worked in this for me. There was other jokes that didn't work, like unfortunately. So there's like sometimes that some jokes and stuff I rolled my eyes out at, and then sometimes too I felt like there was a little bit of a like too much of an emphasis like on some jokes where it would be like, like I feel like they would like take a beat and be like, oh, see what we just did there, like kind of soak that in, kind of stuff, but so like annoyed me, but I mean overall I liked it. The gore and stuff, like it could have been better, but again it wasn't as like bad as you would think, and yeah, it definitely does have the look of a like straight to cable kind of digital movie like we discussed. So again, it probably sounded like negative, but I don't know. I guess it's kind of easier to like point out some of the flaws than a lot of stuff I liked about it, because a lot of stuff is just being like, oh, I like that thing that was funny, or oh yeah, I like that thing that was cool, So yeah, again, definitely not bad. Actually, pretty surprisingly good. Not life changing, but a fun watch.
Yeah, 6 out of 10.
There you go.
I've said my piece. I don't have to go. I think it's a very reasonable, better than expected, but that doesn't mean there's no flaws, and it doesn't mean that there's not some things to critique. But credit to it for actually aiming a little higher, and at times kind of achieving what it's setting out to do. But I wouldn't say it sticks. I think it's sort of like, as I was getting to the midpoint of the movie where things were really starting to click into place, I thought, oh, this may actually be quite good. But then sometimes you find out that that's when the movie peaks, and if it goes back down after that, then you feel, oh, okay, all right, there was more potential here than was attained, and you feel that lack of potential being reached, and that hurts a little bit, but but not bad by any means. So
I guess the big question: will you be watching this movie on Halloween night?
No.
Okay. Have you revealed what you will be watching on Halloween?
No, I don't know what I'm watching on Halloween.
Are you doing a live stream?
I don't know if it'll be on Halloween itself. It kind of depends what day I'm free to do the big stream. But I'll be doing a stream that weekend, because Halloween's on a Sunday. The stream might be a Friday or a Saturday or the Sunday itself. But whatever night I do the big 12-hour stream on, there'll be some watching for sure. Yes.
Okay. Will you reveal the movies ahead of time?
If I pick them ahead of time, yeah.
So is part of the stream just like you scrolling through Netflix, being like, I haven't seen this?
No. Like I tend to pick before I start the stream, but like I don't necessarily tend to always have like next week on stream we're doing this.
Well, that's great. It gives people a lot of time to load up the movies themselves.
Tim, we live in an age where everything is rentable or streamable. Okay.
Well, people have to plan their purchases. If they're gonna have to spend like $3 to rent everything, maybe there's some movies they want to do that they'll save money for versus other ones they won't care for. So
I actually think I've been doing a decent job of giving them a little bit of warning what I've been watching this month throughout October. But it's nice that Tim is choosing to critique how I run the watch party streams. Thank you, Timmy.
You're welcome.
All right, this one's done. Tim, pose for the thumbnail, will you? 3,
Okay.
2, 1, pose. Very good, very good. Tim's slumbering.
I'm actually very tired, so that made me want to go to sleep.
I will thank our Patreon producers for the month, shall I?
Who are they?
Thank you to Tyler S. and Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. So thank you to them.
What if I contributed to the Patreon? Would you have to thank me?
If you did it at the producer tier. if you want to give $20 a month to be a producer, that's on you, Tim.
I'm just curious, like, how you would do it.
I mean, honestly, if you just said, "Hey, I would like a thanks at the end of the show for being on the show," I would be like, "Sure, thanks to Tim for being on the show." Which arguably is even more important than the Patreon producers. As much as I love the Patreon producers, Tim's an essential part of the whole process here.
Okay.
Was that enough thanks for you, you prick? Do you want serenaded, lavish with gifts?
Couldn't hurt.
Okay.
Give me a 4K player.
Oh, you want to make the jump to 4K? Are you getting the itch?
Not yet.
You see,
can my PlayStation play 4K? How does that work?
Yeah, your PS5 can, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You've already got one, you tit. Yes, your PS5. Assuming you've got it hooked up to a 4K TV, you can. I mean,
my TV has to be 4K now.
Well, yes. I mean, technically, you can still watch the 4K because the PS5 will play them. You'll still get to watch them, but you won't be getting it in 4K. It'll be down converting for your TV.
It just will look like a DVD.
Well, Blu-ray more so than a DVD, but
okay.
No, it's not going to down convert it that much, Timmy. it doesn't slap you in the wrist going, you don't have a good TV, so you're not even going to get last generation TV. You're going to get 1996 TV.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, ding the bell for notifications, and of course you can support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month. And we don't have the streams bonuses in particular back on a regular schedule yet, but we will be discussing that soon. So yes, go check out Patreon. But that's us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.